We want to do things that is aligned with who they are. Of course, they have challenges, and it's not saying that we don't work on those challenges, but we work on those challenges in a way that still respect them. Being who they are.
People kept saying, let's redirect the stem, let's stop him from seeing. It just didn't sit well with me because I could see the joy in his face, and how could something that brings a child so much joy be so bad?
You don't have to be doing anything actively contributing anything. Betul. You dah hadir pun, kehadiran tu dah berharga. You don't have to be doing anything with it. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't it doesn't matter. You have worth.
Right.
Hai, salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke episod ke-81 Kita Family Podcast. Seperti biasa, di podcast ini kami akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang kaum, agama, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan upaya. Hari ini kita ada satu topik yang seperti biasa semua topik kita menarik kan? Tapi hari ini kami akan bincang dengan lebih terperinci sedikit tentang neuroaffirming. Right? So neuroaffirming, does it change things for the better? How it works? Dan juga akan sentuh sedikit tentang sesuatu framework yang dipanggil spell framework. Sebelum itu, saya ingin maklumkan siapa yang kita ada di studio hari ini.
Oh, kita excited sangat because we have a guest.
We have a guest.
Alhamdulillah, we have a guest.
Yes, our guest today is, sebelum tu, dari Kita Family Podcast hari ini adalah saya Desiree.
Dan saya Nori. Assalamualaikum.
Nori. Bye. And our special guest is Dr. Zahilah Filzah Zulkifli.
Assalamualaikum. Hello.
Hi Dr. Zaz.
Hi dong. Macam hai 4-5 kali hai sebab excited sangat juga.
Yes, we're very excited. It took us a while to lock down the date, but we're very excited. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So let me just quickly introduce who is Dr. Zahilah kepada sesiapa yang tidak pernah mendengar nama ni. After this, you will remember her.
Yes.
She is a consultant pediatrician and been in the medical field for more than 20 years. And she is also a certified spell master trainer. Apa itu spell? Nanti kita akan bincang. Sebenarnya kita pernah sentuh sedikit tentang spell sebelum ni.
Yep.
Right, dalam episod yang lepas. And she delivers training on creating environments where autistic individuals can thrive across education, healthcare, employment and social settings across the lifespan. Dr. Zahilah currently works as the director of Space A Autism Center. She also dedicates her time at the ARC Autism Center, which supports autistic individuals and families and underserved communities.
Where is ARC?
Where is ARC?
Sungai Buloh.
Yeah.
Hospital Sungai Buloh.
It's the one that was built in the government hospital, right? Sungai.
So it's the territory of Hospital Sungai Buloh is actually quite huge. So ada masjid, ada complex quarters integrasi. So it's actually dalam complex quarters integrasi tu.
I see.
Yeah, but it is considered part of HKM jugalah. Sungai Buloh.
Sorry?
It's part of the hospital, right?
It's part of the hospital, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very cool. Okay, so let's start off first. So you're a pediatrician by profession,
right?
And of course, Nori and I, and even Didi, we've all went for trainings conducted by you, so we know you pretty well. But we would like our audience to get to know you better, and the fact that you are quite a strong advocate for neurodiversity and autism. So, what made you, as a pediatrician, become some sort of? And to us, we find you an expert in autism and neurodiversity. So maybe we start off with that.
First of all, I wouldn't call myself an expert lah. Yeah. I am probably an ally to the neurodivergent community. So masa saya kerja, masa saya kerja sebagai pakar kanak-kanak, so I see them very often, right? Because you do have a lot of referrals for, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and whatnot. So over time, some of the experience I've had with my patients made me question, what I understood about neurodivergence. Of course, neurodivergence, as I say it, is not a term that comes from a medical textbook or a medical journal. It's a panggil socio-political punya term lah, terminologi sebenarnya kan. So there is a long battle and struggle kan of neurodivergent untuk mendapatkan hak, untuk mendapatkan tempat dalam komuniti dan sebagainya. So one of the things is that when you ask me, okay, apa yang menyebabkan I look into this, is again sebenarnya sebab a lot of things didn't sit well with me. You know, a lot of the things that we do just didn't sit well with me, and I thought, how do I understand them better? And so, nak jadikan ceritanya ialah sebab I went to one of this conference, I think masa tu kat Singapore, and then I listened to Dr. Damien Milton, who was talking about autism. And then, he is autistic himself. And suddenly I macam, I never knew all those stuff, you know? And so, I stalked this guy tau. I must stalk this guy. Anyway, I went on. I stalked this guy. Okay. Anyway, I macam belajar lah. I took the initiative to learn more through the Masters of Autism Studies, and I thought maybe I should just open myself up to new perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So interesting. And it's also, I mean, it's just coming back to a lot of similarities, right? It's a bit of a personal journey as well, because of your experience. You have multiple ways through your work, and maybe, you know, to some extent family also, to just have experience with people who are different, right? And then it just that's it. That was it. It just affected you, you know, enough for you to feel that there's a better way.
Definitely. I would consider, like, I believe that I'm still learning, and you will never truly understand. You will never truly understand, and you have to keep learning and keep listening. And I always, you know, reminded with especially this girl. She's 12, and she never spoke to me. And she comes to the ARC, right? And I remember the first time I saw her was actually at the pediatric clinic. But I thought at that point I could somehow, you know, interact with an autistic individual, an autistic child, but I just couldn't get to her. I got so frustrated that I said, "Hey, Mom, perhaps could you meet me at the ARC?" And so I brought this girl to the ARC, and I said, "Go ahead, play whatever you like." And she went straight to the trampoline. Only later I found out that she has been asking for a trampoline from her mother. But they couldn't really afford it, right?
Okay.
Right. And so and that was when we had a number of, bukanlah number, sebenarnya dua kot, trampoline. So I jumped on the other one. So she was jumping on the other one. And that was when she opened up to me. When I say opened up, she started to interact, smile and whatnot, but she didn't speak to me. In fact,
she's non-speaking ke? She chose not to speak to you?
She actually has selective mutism.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to actually prefer to call it situational mutism, because selecting it as though they choose to when they want to speak and when they want to ignore. But actually, you know, anyway, I didn't speak to her. I never heard her speak until I was in Papua New Guinea tau. And she had, the mom texted me and say she's asking to do a video call. And that was the first time she actually spoke to me through that video call. And let me tell you, that was the only time, because I came back to Malaysia and I've met her. She still does not speak to me, but she will leave a voice note through her mom's WhatsApp kan. Dia akan hantar pada I, and dia cakap macam, "Saya sayang doktor, terima kasih doktor," you know, and things like that reminds me that, hey, there are, you know, why are we just accepting spoken language as the way to communicate?
Absolutely.
Why can't we change our mind and accept all forms of communication?
Because that's so meaningful. She doesn't have to say it to you depan lah.
Yeah.
Tapi, you know, obviously she has a way to communicate with you that you can
and I consider this one of, you know, the beautiful relationship I have with my patient lah. You know? Yeah,
definitely. It really does sound beautiful.
Yeah. Definitely a really beautiful story. And, you know, I like that you said communication. Use the word communication and not so much speaking, right?
Yes, or conversation,
or
or
our children speak to us in many forms
and it's
many
actually
ways.
again, when we think about neurodiversity and all that, it is truly just a mindset shift. Because for the longest time, I did not understand this, and in fact, when I was learned about this, I couldn't accept it because why would we not aim for kids or people to speak, right? You would think that that's the highest form of communication, but I learned, what these kids and adolescents have taught me is different. And some of them would write, some would use AAC and augmentative and alternative communication. But sometimes you've got to be just attuned to their behavior, because we often think macam komunikasi tu intentional, kan, they come to you and communicate, but sometimes they could be tapping something and that actually means something.
Yes.
You've got to be so attuned to them.
Yes, my son has many ways. I mean, although he has an AAC device, he has many ways of telling me what songs he wants me to sing and when. And it's not even a regular sign language sign. It's signs that I would understand. Like Incy Wincy Spider is the two fingers going up,
Right.
and then if he claps his hands, it means he wants me to sing. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. So very interesting. So these are actually good examples of neuroaffirming, right? So
Right,
maybe
yes.
let's talk a little bit more about that. Maybe you can tell us in your experience, what is neuroaffirming?
Yeah, let's do that
Yeah.
first.
Right.
And why it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I will just boldly say, I think the way to move forward is through neuroaffirming practice. And we talk about practice, it sounds like something that professionals have to do or therapists, but I think the society hopefully can also become neuroaffirming. So when we talk about neuroaffirming ataupun kepelbagaian neuro lah, kan, it goes back to understanding apa itu neurodiversity, kan? And I'm sure that you guys have discussed about this before. But technically, it's the understanding that there is diversity in how the brain thinks, process information, feel, or experience the world. And it's just as diversified as when we talk about language, culture, personality, kan? So semua orang ada different personality and whatnot. And if we can appreciate that there is no one single way of being or existing in the world, and that these are natural and valuable, right? And I like to use the word value neutral, which means that inherently it is not negative or positive to be born a neurotypical or a neurodivergent. That's so important to understand.
Yeah.
Just as how it is inherently not positive or negative or advantage or disadvantage to be born a Malay, a Muslim. That's how it is. That's who you are, right? And I think with that understanding, kita faham bahawa kita tak perlu menormalisasikan ataupun memperbetulkan these people who we think are different than us. I think that's important. So to get that idea first, that people can, because bila the brain thinks or process information or experience the world differently, how does this translate? Dia akan translate dengan kepelbagaian kita berinteraksi, berkomunikasi, belajar, engage in the things we love and solve problems. So if we can understand that and be value neutral about that, then you can truly understand what neuroaffirming practice is. It's about, understanding that these are just a different way they learn, for example. But it does not mean, one of the things I think, of course, there are people who criticize neurodiversity and neuroaffirming practice. So they say like, oh, neurodiversity ni apply to those yang tak banyak challenges, yang sort of high functioning. Kalau anak I, dah besar 20 tahun, period pun I kena tukarkan. I nak belajar pun dia tak habis belajar sebab tak boleh nak pergi ke sekolah. Dia tak boleh, toilet training pun ada masalah. How is this a natural variation of the human mind? People ask.
So people ask you, okay,
Yep.
then?
Yep.
And how do you respond?
And I think that is a valid question.
Yes, a valid
That's
question.
definitely valid question.
Yeah.
So again, I think sometimes we forget that when we talk about neurodiversity, we must talk about intersectionality. That there are so many other identities that intersects with neurodivergence. For example, your gender, your socioeconomic status, the education and whatnot. It will change how, sort of like neurodivergence is manifest. So contoh, if you look at someone like that, I would be thinking around, does this family get support? Right? Could this be instead a manifestation of lack of support?
Yeah.
Could it also be, contohnya, being neurodivergent, on top of that ada intellectual disability, on top of that ada trauma, right? And mental health challenges, for example. So
yang berbawa kepada keadaan yang sangat-sangat mencabar, right? That this person is identified as a person yang cannot do so many things, tak boleh be independent, cannot even take care of themselves, kan?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it's as though people think that, these people does not fall under the concept of neurodiversity. The thing is, neurodiversity is about all of us, right? It's about all of us. So again, that part, I think the intersectionality part and looking into support and whatnot. So, I mean, I'm not just Malay. There's a lot of things about me that makes me who I am, something like that, right? Yeah. So we have many other identities and whatnot.
I kind of like to connect it to dignity.
Right.
And about just being human, as in you are a person juga. Right. That's something that macam dekat kita family, we always talk about that. Kita macam kadang-kadang macam kenapa kita boleh terlupa atau menafikan that there's insan sebagai manusia.
Betul.
Right? So just to recognize that even if you have stuff going on that's making you different, your brain works different ke, and then and then all that is translated into so many things, with disability ke, without disability ke, whether it affects things like tingkah laku ke or whatever. It's like they should not be denied of their identity as human, first of all.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And also when we talk about neurodiversity, although of course we understand that it is a difference, but it is also for many of maybe neurodivergence, the challenges is way more. And so we also understand that it can be, a person can have these differences and also disabled at the same time. And disability is part of the human experience. You cannot eliminate that.
Yes.
You can never.
The other thing we also say is, as you get older, the longer you live, the bigger chance you have of becoming disabled.
Definitely.
This is part of human experience,
Right.
Sometimes it's related to umur, but in this sense it's not lah, kan? But it's like, that sudden, you don't stop becoming human just because now you cannot walk as well as you used to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's right.
I think for me, neurodiversity actually means that everybody is different. Semua orang berbeza sebenarnya, and I like that you put it in context of being Melayu Muslim. Like for me, I'm Indian, I'm Christian. That's just part of me. But I'm many other things. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, And same goes with people who are neurodivergent. Their diagnosis is not the only defining factor about them. Right. And I think we need to be able to accept that about semua orang. Right. Bukan saja community neurodivergent, semua orang. If you
this is another layer lah.
It's another
layer.
layer.
You want to point out all the things that's different about being human.
Correct.
That's the other thing. It's just the way the brain works.
Betul. Kan? And sometimes it starts with ourselves. Sebenarnya kalau nak inklusif, kita kena accept diri kita sebagai diri kita sendiri first.
Oh, that's so true.
That's so true. That's so true.
Everything else, right? So sometimes it's about looking within before looking outside.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to dial it back a little bit now to you being a doctor, and you work a lot with fellow doctors in your field to help shift these mindsets, right? To encourage, I wouldn't say change, it's more of a shift and encouraging them, because at the end of the day,
sometimes it's change.
Ini nak jadi politically correct sikit. Bukan salah. I mean, I would like to think semua orang niat dia orang baik. For some people, it's harder to let go of what they've learned to be the medical model. And so what made you, do this go into this uphill battle, if I may say, to sort of shift those mindsets in the medical field?
Over time, I feel that it is an injustice to the neurodivergent community. And part of the medical ethics, actually, when you talk about do good, do no harm, and what, justice is also part of it, right? And when I first started, it was always about, macam takut nak cakap orang faham ke tidak, mungkin tak orang salah faham what I'm trying to say, and things like that. But as you interact more with the neurodivergent community, then you realize that this is an urgent matter. It's not something that you can.
It's not just like, oh, this is a bonus lah kalau you
betul.
faham.
Betul.
Elok lah kalau buat. It's not, right?
Yeah,
it's more
no.
than that.
It's when they say, and sometimes I feel like, bila kita pilih macam tak nak cakap sesuatu benda, walaupun benda tu salah contohnya, ataupun kerana kita tak nak, offend some people, for example, right? And then I ask myself, like, why do these feelings matter more than those neurodivergents, for example?
Right.
Right? I think there's a lot of things going on. I like to think that everyone is well-meaning. I like to think that everyone is practicing around, what's ethical lah, for example, kan? But let's be honest about it. That's not entirely true. Yeah. So there are a lot of things going on. Of course, macam ni lah, macam to me kan, when I first heard about, bila kita cakap pasal, the way we practice things, the way we communicate, or even some of the approaches that we recommend, for example, right? I remember when I was discussing this with my lecturer, I memang sangat tak setuju banyak benda lah. Banyak benda tak setuju. Like saying that, no, that's not the reason why we do it. We want this because we want to help them to achieve a certain development milestone, so then they could fit in. And it's important to fit in, blah, 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 and all that, right? And it was so hard to change that mindset. Because as a pediatrician, we look, bila kita dengan budak lah, selalunya what tells you that something is not quite right, it's often the fact that their developmental milestone is much delayed than their
peers,
typical counterparts, right? And so we often compare.
Yes.
It was only later that I learned that there is diverse pathway for development, and then the development does not necessarily have to be linear. And that these neurodivergent has spiky profile, so they can have, they could be very good at one area and struggle and have a lot of challenges in other areas, right? And
So macam ni. That's why
Right.
it's called spiked, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then,
Up
if
and
you,
down.
if you think about it as a color wheel, right? And you look at each dimension, it could be that for communication, they're down here, and then maybe this particular person is really good with history and everything, like, because it's their special interest. So it's from here, when you plot it, then it will go here, then it will go like that, and it's like that spiky.
Yeah,
right?
it's moving in different directions. Or it will happen later, maybe not
Definitely.
earlier, something
So,
like that. Yeah.
I think, and then the thought about how many of the neurodivergents have challenges with mental health, and let me quote, for example, autistic children are 28 times more likely to think and contemplate suicide. How are we not, saddened by this, or,
children. You said
I'm talking
children,
about
right?
children, yes.
Yeah.
Children.
And children by
This is
definition
not even adults,
below
right?
18.
Below 18. Yeah.
Right.
They've already contemplated, like there's ideation, there's
Yes.
thinking about so
And
28 more times than
28
budak-budak
more
lain.
times, yeah. And
Pull up.
I remember speaking to one autistic lady friend, and she said to me, "Zah, I thought about suicide since I was 8. And I was just taken aback." Right? And so I started asking myself, if this is the outcome, there's something wrong with what we're doing. Because if what we're doing is right, right? And I'm not saying everything is wrong, okay? Don't get me wrong. Like,
In terms of practice dulu-dulu or more traditional things.
right.
Okay.
Or in the way we support.
Okay.
Or even in the way we speak about neurodivergence, right? If what we're doing is right, if we're in the right track, this should not be the outcome. If this is the outcome. So like in
We
the
shouldn't
UK,
see this kind of data.
Correct.
We shouldn't hear about
So
these
in
kind
the
of
UK,
experiences.
This is considered, autistic suicidality is considered a national crisis.
Wow.
And that is why AT Autism, the organization that I'm with, they partnered with Anna Freud of University College London to do a national autism training program with NHS, National Health Service in the UK, because of this fact that autistic people have there are 2 decades in terms of their average lifespan, 2 decades less. Autistic women is likely to, without learning disability, is likely to die by suicide like 9 or 13 times more. So that got me thinking. This means something, right?
Yeah.
Perbezaan dia antara hidup mati.
Yeah.
Menakutkan.
It's huge.
It is menakutkan. Sorry, when you're saying all those numbers,
I'm very
it's
very
very frightening.
and very
Yes.
It's
It is very
rough.
frightening.
And so I told myself that even how hard it's going to be for me to change my mindset, I've got to learn. I've got to understand. It may take me a long time, but that's okay. Right? We've got to understand. And I think the best teacher are in fact those neurodivergents, right? Because we learn so much from their lived experience.
Absolutely.
And then there is a gap from what we understand through research or through formal training and education with lived experience.
Big gap.
Definitely big gap. And then I started looking at participatory and autistic-led research and how that differs with conclusions that we've made through research by neurotypical. Because the thing is, we all have bias, right?
Yes.
We all have bias. So again, when we talk about neuroaffirming practice, it starts from the language itself. How we speak about neurodivergent matters. It really matters. So things like if we say red flag for autism, I don't know. I feel...
Why is it?
I
wouldn't
used
have
to
to be
say that a
red.
lot.
Why can't it be a rainbow flag?
I use that term a lot in the past, right? Like these are red flags. So if they're not speaking by this and they're not have eye contact.
Yeah, because bunyi macam benda tu negative lah, right? Red flag is like something you don't want.
Correct.
Or it's like it's something you don't want. Even though it's an indicator of a warning, but a warning it's only a warning if it's something that you don't want.
Definitely.
Right?
Exactly.
It's not like, berita baik. Then you don't use the word red flag. So it's as simple as that. Kita tak terfikirkan pun. And it's actually not our intention to say anything bad about whatever. It's just common terminology, but it's just like, well, I suppose in the past it's just the type of words we use to describe somebody's race, ethnicity, semua tu lah. Dulu boleh diterima, sekarang we wouldn't do that. Right?
Yeah.
We just won't do that. And so we need to make this shift
We
for
need to.
neurodiversity as well. Yeah.
And, people often say, then we talk about acceptance, we talk about the society. Then I thought about who makes up society. Professionals also made up society.
Yep.
Right? So can the society truly change if you may, for a lot of people, I guess, think that maybe doctors are the authority.
Yes,
right?
of course.
Right?
Yep.
It's still
authority.
point of reference. Like
Influence.
that. Yeah. And if we continue to use these terms, for example, or the way we talk about it, or the words that we use, and we don't change, because we often say, in the end, talk about acceptance, but we have to outline what acceptance really means. And that is how you translate into neuroaffirming practice. Because we all say that acceptance kami, even doctors juga lah, bila kita bagi talk dan sebagainya, kita cakap kita nak promote acceptance, but it's such an ambiguous word, kan?
Yes.
Acceptance mean. What does acceptance mean then?
Yeah. What does it look like?
What does it look like? What does it need?
Yeah.
What needs to happen for it?
Yes.
For us to call it that's acceptance.
Yeah.
It reminds me of our Kakak SK's always, her call out is always for the action part, right?
Yeah.
So what action can we actually take to actually showcase the acceptance and the inclusion?
To show that acceptance is there. We're not even talking about like even like appreciation.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? That's already like a much bigger step. But to even accept So then you have to actually sit down and go, okay lah, kalau dah ada penerimaan, maknanya apa akan berubah, like from the context of you as a doctor, bila berjumpa dengan patient kan. So saya sebagai doktor, lepas ni kalau saya dah kata, oh ni perlu berubah, kalau tak boleh jumpa macam ni, then how does that translate? Right? Are you sitting down and going, okay, bila saya buat consultation sekarang ini kena berubah. Kalau saya cakap ini berubah apa, ni kena berubah. Ini adalah maklumat yang ingin saya sampaikan kepada ibu bapa. Right? It has to translate into that, not just, oh, good talk. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, true lah. We have to accept, and then nothing shifts in the clinic and in treating the patient or...
Yep.
Right.
I'm reminded of this fellow pediatrician who came to my spell workshop. And after, I think, a couple of weeks, she texted me and she said, hey, I started doing something today, which was, so she has got this particular kid who's on her follow-up.
Okay.
And she often asks for eye contact, even though in a most child-friendly way, not in a demanding way, but she stopped saying that. And she said, you don't have to give me an eye contact. I now understand that that's painful for you. And she said that was the first time she actually was able to have an interaction and conversation with this particular child, because she starts, to
respect that is not something that they wanted to do.
Because again, when we look at what we learned in the past, like we think that means something as simple as eye contact lah. Sebenarnya kan atypical eye contact, of course. People think about reduced eye contact means reduced attention. Reduced motivation. Social motivation,
which is not necessarily
engagement.
True.
The thing is, when the autistic, when the autistic researchers, they look into this, of course, they also get the same finding, which is the autistic people memang reduce eye contact. Or of course, some are the atypical, like kita panggil atypical, because for some of them, it is can be intense, instead of having reduced eye contact. But because of this insider perspective, they know that this is adaptive. That I listen better to you when I don't look at you, right? And if we can respect this fact, right? And then we wouldn't be working on eye contact. So one might say, why would you not work on eye contact?
Because got so many other things to work on lah.
Exactly.
How much time do you want to invest in this compared to so many things? If you sit down and think about it, now you're like, Ya Allah, why was that even a thing? Right? Because it was a thing back in when Timo was young.
No, even for Hans. First thing is like, we need to increase his eye contact. That's the first thing you do.
Because it felt like it was connected to all those other things lah.
But it's also about, when I think about why is it sometimes they can't process their information, process their emotion, or even recognize their emotion, process it and describe it. And everything is actually linked. When you think about working on eye contact, right? Walaupun diorang dah bagi tahu kat kita, sebenarnya eye contact tu can be to a certain point menyakitkan.
And it's scary. To a small child, it can be very scary.
But what I realize is that because it's adaptive, actually, many of the autistic children that I've met have amazing eye contact.
They do. Yeah.
They can have amazing eye contact. And yes, there are times, and maybe that is quite frequent, they don't look at you because at that time, it's just hard. But when it is not hard, they will look at you.
Yeah.
And if we think about introspection, about, being aware of our body our body signals, right?
Yeah.
Imagine feeling all this discomfort, but people still ask you to do it, to still look at people, right?
Yeah.
And when
that
this
is painful plus sakit hati.
so when this pediatrician shared with me, I said, wow, you see, imagine just changing one thing, and that's what you see. And it all goes back to acceptance, belonging and connection. That's how my mentor always remind me. It's about acceptance, belonging and connection. Because very often they do not have that sense of belonging. So bila kita nak buat neuroaffirming practice is to ensure that we respect their dignity, respect their authenticity, so they can have this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
We want to do things that is aligned with who they are. Of course, they have challenges, and it's not saying that we don't work on those challenges, but we work on those challenges in a way that still respect them.
For
being who they are.
being who they
Yeah.
are. Yeah. Appreciating them
Definitely.
for who they are. And I think appreciating them for where they are at.
Definitely,
Right?
definitely.
So on that note, we've covered quite a lot. Let's take a short break and we'll come back with a bit more and we'll talk a little bit about spell when we come back after the break. See you soon. Hai, selamat kembali ke episod ke-81 Kita Family Podcast. Hari ini kita berbincang dengan sangat mendalam lah sebenarnya tentang neuroaffirming practices. Bersama-sama di studio adalah saya bersama Nori dan juga tetamu khas kita, Dr. Zahilah. So, before the break, we talked about neuroaffirming, about the medical model, your passion in, giving more awareness and understanding to fellow doctors on why neuroaffirming is important lah. Yeah, it's very important also because of the kind of position they hold in society kan. Kita anggapkan doktor as a sort of authority on many matters.
Yeah, and then we highlighted about the language part,
Yes.
right? But we want to know
Yes.
what neuroaffirming looks like in reality. As like kalau you nak support somebody in a neuroaffirming way, ataupun dekat konteks-konteks tertentu, sama ada dekat rumah ke apa, what does neuroaffirming look like?
Right.
Yeah.
So even from the word itself, when we talk about affirming, kan, you're affirming
Mengiktiraf.
Mengiktiraf.
The neurodivergence being, So the example I gave you earlier about that pediatricians who start not asking for an eye contact, right? But for another example would be about accepting and respecting multimodal communication. We talk about that. There are many ways to communicate, and to recognize that, these is what constitute these different ways of communicating is what constitute the total communication, right? The other thing is about connection before correction. So,
I like that.
Connection
before correction. Okay.
Because very often when you think about a child, for example, and they don't have certain skills or they are developmentally delayed in certain areas.
And kita nak sangat tolong.
Kita nak tolong. And so kita nak correct them and certain things kan. I mean, you've got to first connect with that person. Mesti, The connection part is very important. It's about also contohnya allowing stimming, So in the past, people have thought that stimming is
mengganggu
satu, is a form of distraction, but because they have nothing else to do, right? People have thought about that.
So occupy them and then they stop steaming.
Yep. So people think that, because they have nothing to do, and therefore, these children or these adult for that matter, stims. But we know now that it is a form of self-regulation. It could also be a form of self-expression.
Yeah.
And
what
so,
they like.
Yeah. And very often when we think about stimming, right? Apparently, let me rephrase that. When we think about stimming, maybe in our mind, there's certain stimming that is accepted. It's like, this one that looks a little weird. Maybe we could change this and replace it with other forms of stimming because it looks weird to you. Now, the only time you want to change a stimming is when it is dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's just this. When we talk about stimming, we know that we all stims.
Yes.
Even the neurotypical stim. Like, one of the things that people often stim, one of the ways that people often stim is shaking their legs, for example.
Yes.
You see that very often.
Yep.
And suddenly someone says, you know what? That's offensive to me. You shaking your leg. Can I get you to shake your hands instead?
Shake hands.
What I'm trying to say is that, sometimes you want to replace it with something that you feel
it's more
acceptable.
Socially acceptable.
Tapi according to who?
Yes.
Siapa
According
yang kata
to
benda
who?
ni lebih sesuai dan lebih elok berbanding dengan benda yang lain? And
all these are exclusive to the person.
Yes.
It's just also like when they have a fidget toy. Right? A fidget tool or certain, like they may use a certain thing, but you can't accept that particular thing because, you don't like it. So you say, okay, use something else. When it is more than just a fidget tool to that person. Stimming, the way they stim and why they choose to stim that way means a lot more than just self-regulating.
Yes,
You know?
yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's the first thing when Hans was diagnosed that didn't sit well with me when, people kept saying, let's redirect the stem, let's stop him from seeing. It just didn't sit well with me because I could see the joy in his face and how could something that brings a child so much joy be so bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tak ada problem dengan orang lain pun. Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I'm not embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have known if we didn't hear from neurodivergent people themselves kan,
Exactly.
what it
Betul.
actually means about selama ni kita buat andaian, kita teka, konon-konon macam kita yang faham kenapa dia buat benda ni, and it's amazing that it's only quite recently that we have decided that we need to ask orang tu yang sebenarnya terlibat the subject matter of the thing.
Betul?
When you realize, you think about it all that now, it seems so weird and crazy that we
But
haven't
in the UK, it started since the
consulted
1990s.
them, But even that is recent
Yeah,
bayangkan
it's true.
lah.
Yeah, but
90s tu like 30 years ago je baru kita ada kesedaran untuk like
Include
jomlah kita
them.
tanyalah orang tu. Dia yang terkesan, baru kita nak tanya.
And
I mean,
actually
we
what you're
did it for
saying-
so long.
Nori, what you're saying is also another aspect of neuroaffirming, which is prioritizing lived experience. Prioritizing lived experience. And so, textbook
Never
will
mind
tell-
what the textbook, yeah, exactly. Never what the textbook
could say
says, yeah.
this and whatnot. But what does those with lived experience tells us?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be just another perspective. That's not how we are supposed to read it.
It is
These
the
stories-
perspective.
Yeah. Sometimes we when we have these neurodivergents talk about their lived experience, right? How do we look at that? Do we think that should inform our practice, law and policy, or we think, just another moving sad story? How do we treat it? That's important.
Thanks for sharing.
So tokenism is not enough, right? I think that's what we want to say. Tokenism is not enough. I mean, having a seat, we are grateful that now we see more and more self-advocates being given a seat at the table to consult, but we now need to move beyond. Again, we talk about the action, right? So don't let it be a tokenism thing, but we have to put it into
But
action.
Desiree, just on what you said, I think it's more than just giving them a seat at the table. It's about changing the world that we live in so that they too can live and thrive.
Yeah, and
that's
every
what's
single
important.
day
Yes.
to every sort of like ordinary person, just an ordinary person who is neurodivergent, as opposed to somebody who is able to like be influential and affect policy and be able to whatever. Diorang pun akan, the numbers akan sangat kurang jenis manusia macam tu pun. So I understand, I think what you're trying to say. I
So
agree with
absolutely.
you.
No, definitely
But
agree.
it's like,
No, I definitely agree.
it's like not just at that decision making or this or whatever, but the every day.
Yeah.
How does
and
that
in
change
fact,
every
you
single day?
mentioned at the earlier part of this conversation about being human. And very often that we put value to neurodivergence, that they're only valuable if they fulfill this capitalistic, understand,
Your
understanding
skill,
of
your
existing in the world.
ability, that special thing that you
If you have an
bring.
ability, you have a good job that comes with it,
Yeah.
then you're valuable. Now we've got to start also respecting those who even have, meltdowns and, even how frequent those meltdowns are.
Yeah. No, there's intrinsic value to human life. Absolutely. I think that's
Every
been
single human life.
one of the biggest shifts and changes in my own journey, to just appreciate it from that perspective. You don't have to be doing anything, actively contributing anything. You dah hadir pun, kehadiran tu dah berharga. You don't have to be doing anything with it. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't it doesn't matter. You have worth.
Right.
And that's actually enough, I want to share my personal experience and how I'm so grateful to Dr. Zah that when we got to know her, when we're talking about neuroaffirming, can I share that Timo story when you were watching? So when Dr. Zah went in to kind of see how Timo was doing at a class he was attending at that that point in he is not somebody who speaks a lot, right? It's not so easy to have a regular conversation with him. He is able to speak. He definitely can communicate in multiple different ways. But there was this time where he was with his main sort of therapist or teacher. Then somebody came to say hi or ask a question or something to that teacher who was with Timo lah. And for whatever reason, I mean, I hope that it was because the person was in a rush or kita tak tahu, right? Didn't acknowledge Timo at all, right? Didn't acknowledge him at all. And it was not because he also macam tak pandang, sibuk buat something else or whatever. So maybe the person thought, okay, I tak nak lah ganggu you sebab you sibuk. Apparently he looked up, right?
Yeah.
So even though he wasn't saying
Many
hi,
times.
it's like expecting. It was very jelas lah, I think, right?
And
I
that's
remember
a
when
number of times. Right?
when you were telling me that and you said how that really hit you, then we both said and like our hearts broke a little bit. And it was just, and so neuroaffirming in that sense would have been to acknowledge him, to say hi, just like you would probably say hi if it was another student, or definitely you will say hi if the student goes, hey, hi.
Yeah.
Kalau dia tegur dulu or something like that. But tak payahlah tunggu orang tu tegur seperti biasa. Kita macam, yelah nak kalau kita tengok, kita kata, oh kalau dah, ada budi bahasa ke apa, sepatutnya mungkin student tu lah yang tegur cikgu dulu apa. Tapi kalau dia tak dapat, dia tak boleh. Or maybe his way of like, is I look at you first.
Yes.
So you need to, and then if you can do that, it's like, bukan nak kata orang tu yang datang, dia memang, yelah dia sibuk, dia dah ada dia punya hasrat. Dia nak berjumpa dengan orang tertentu, tapi takkanlah dia tak like, hello je lah kejap. Just a hello, right? That's
so when we think about neuroaffirming support, right? It's not about, even when we recognize that these differences are natural, right? And we want to tell ourselves that walaupun kita nak bagi dia terapi lah contohnya, ataupun kita nak menolong dia lah, nak bantu dia dalam develop certain skills, I think one of the things that we must move away from this objectification of that person. Kita tampak dia sebagai sesuatu untuk, dia ni untuk diterapikan, untuk dia diperbetulkan dan sebagainya. And so sometimes you could be, the interaction may not be as natural because in a neuroaffirming practice, it needs to be collaborative, not authoritative,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So bila you collaborative, kita buat bersama-sama, you can still, of course, you can still guide, you can still correct, again with,
You can still teach.
You can still teach, definitely.
Yeah.
But once we objectified, it's as though that the person in front of us is more of an object rather than a human being with feelings and desires and all that.
Okay. Right. So, as Nori was telling the story of Timor, and of course your response, Dr. Zah, definitely, I definitely see it from your perspective. I'm just going to play the devil's advocate here a little bit. Right?
Okay.
When we talk about neuroaffirming, we are Malaysians. Culturally kan, kita yang muda kena tegur cikgu. Yang muda lah yang kena tegur yang tua terlebih dahulu. So where is the place for neuroaffirming in, I'm not saying I'm not for neuroaffirming, I'm all for it. But like I said, devil's advocate here. Di Malaysia ni, susah tak nak actually have it in practice? Because a lot of us are still so, we are proud of our heritage, our culture and all that, right? So how do we,
Salam.
bring both the two together?
Not just like eye contact tu kan. Eye contact tu. The other thing, look, we were saying, we didn't mention this just now, but antara kenapa orang suka sangat nak highlight and nak think eye contact ni, is supaya kanak-kanak tu akan lebih normal, akan nampak at least macam, tak adalah macam kurang ajar sangat. You know, is that,
Understood.
And how do we bridge that? How do we bridge that, right?
So how
the
do
things that
we,
you're saying, right? When you're expecting a certain way of being, right? So, like you may call it manners, for example, right? Even they also did study, for example, how the neurotypical feel when the the autistic do not give them eye contact. Don't terasa. feel like they're being ignored, not being. So that's how they feel, and that is why, when you ask what is, how does it sit in our Malaysian culture, for example, kan? You imagine if you want to go to a place. Actually, Jack told me this. I remember, like when you think about if you are going to move into a new country, let's say Japan, what are you going to do? You are going to first learn
the Japanese culture
of the Japanese, right? Right? Because you're going to somewhere else. If you think about, for example, the neurodivergent culture or the autistic culture, this is where
that also deserves respect.
Definitely.
That also something you must learn about.
We have to learn about it. We must understand it. We must ask those who are in fact neurodivergent to have that understanding. And so, so I have trained quite a number of professionals, parents, autistic themselves in SPEL. And what I realized, so when I first started, I was very apprehensive about this. Are people going to accept it? Do people get what I'm trying to say? Could people misunderstand what I say, right? But what I realized, for many of them, they have had it in them. They just need a validation. And especially those, who are, we have a lot of exceptional doctors, exceptional therapists, teachers out there, But sometimes you're told that this is how it's supposed to be practiced when your heart feels differently. And sometimes you get scared, right?
But that's what led them to you lah. Kan? Or to the training or to find out
to
more.
find out more about what
because
SPEL is.
ada yang tak kena, ada yang tak cukup dan tak sesuai.
And I would think that's the reason probably that drives them again to this, because if you're coming to learn about autism, even though you might have been practicing for 20 over years, 30 years, I've got a pediatrician who came twice. You see,
just to make sure it sits properly, right?
And I was just talking to Dr. Shan, and he organized the EPO SPEL recently, and he came to SPEL twice, and then I had a dinner with him and some of us. I was just listening to how his practice has shifted, and the things that he does, and how how beautiful the interaction with his clients were. You see, so what I believe is that people get it, people understand. But for some of us, of course, it's about telling people, okay, these are neurodivergent. So that's one of the things, again, going back to neuroaffirming support. A lot of time we talk about social skills. And we say that social skills is very important. I am not saying that it is not important. What I'm saying, very often, the way that it is projected is that the neurodivergent have to learn the way the neurotypical,
only diorang yang kena adjust.
It has to be both ways lah, I think, kan?
But of course, I also realized with the many neurodivergents who have attended, and they've given me feedback, they've written email to me, send me videos, and what they realize, things that they don't even realize in themselves. Just because all this while, they had to mask throughout their life. Okay, now, neurotypical mask to fit in. Actually, neurodivergent mask, not to fit in,
To
they
survive.
must to survive, to
Yeah.
avoid isolation, to avoid stigma.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's different.
Yeah.
And so what we realize is that it's so important, and again, it's part of the neuroaffirming practice, is to nurture lah identity neurodivergent tu. Kenapa kita tidak boleh bangga dengan identity neurodivergent tu? Untuk an autistic to be proud to be autistic, the way it is spoken about in the society must be positive. Or else that's why some of them also battle with internalized ableism, kan?
Yes.
Jadi
Dia sendiri menafikan identiti diri dia.
Yeah. And so you'll be always searching for that identity. So that nurturing the identity and self-worth important. And then you know yourself, you know your community, then you know the other, the neurotypicals, for example.
I also think that in Malaysia, Desiree, there is a bit more of an understanding of kepelbagaian dari segi budaya.
Yeah.
So yes, we have this budaya Timur and Asian culture of respect and whatever, but we also know there are differences.
Yes.
Right? We don't expect everybody to salam each other. We don't expect everybody to eat the same thing. And just now when I was I remember I was thinking it in my mind masa Dr. Zah sebut pasal that it can be kind of painful and like how we just think that the STEM is just something that we can just tukar-tukar, boleh je ada pilihan lain, right? But imagine if somebody, comes and tells you to switch over or choose something else when it is very, very important to you. Okay? Like, okay. Sorry lah, hari ni kita ada daging je. Okay? I memang tak ada benda lain. So, just for today, because you need to eat. Okay? Desiree, look, there's beef.
Yeah.
Can you just swap over to eat beef today? Or like, or like, I go to you and say, sorry, Dr. Zah, there's bacon.
Right.
You go to a conference, you go abroad and whatever, and somebody just doesn't understand that you're Muslim and you're practicing Muslim, and they're just like, there's a bacon sandwich. Just for today, is that okay? Like, this is like, for you, it's like a simple choice and preference. Macam, tak ada apa-apa lah. Betul. Hari ni boleh lah, I nak makan bab. Esok tak makan. Or sebab, okay, hari ni, okay lah, that's just what somebody is offering me. This is like the STEM could be as important as that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, that's very good
a very
example.
good example.
The other one I thought of is the left hand versus right hand thing. Like if someone told me, hey, you can only write with your right hand today.
Yeah.
When I'm obviously left-handed. That's why I gave this example, right?
And people who are like tangan kidal have been denied for so long because there is this thing in our culture also about how macam tangan kanan ni lah yang buat all the everything benda yang elok, seolah-olah tangan kiri ni buruk.
Betul? And for a very long time, actually, in fact, people have thought that is this evil spirit when someone actually pakai tangan kiri.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've been told off for serving with my left because it's reflex, right? So now in my brain, whenever I serve someone like food right on the table, you want to take a sendok, and if I don't want to spill all over, I'm going to use my left hand, and so I automatically apologize. I'm sorry, I'm serving you with my left hand because I'm left-handed.
You have to apologize.
It's already automatic.
You have to apologize for being who you are, right?
Yes.
Ouch.
When I don't have to, and I know, and now at this age, I know I don't have to, but I still do it because it's in my brain. Like, okay, you have to apologize because someone may take offense and think you're being rude.
This is a good time, maybe before we finish up. Just tell us a little bit about spell training. Okay, like what is the spell framework? How does it support the neuroaffirming thing, or apa kena mengena spell dengan neuroaffirming thing, kan? And then that's how we can finish up, right?
We can conclude from there.
Okay. So spell is actually a framework, that is co-designed with autistic individuals, and because it is co-designed in autistic individual, it has that insider perspective. So when we talk about organizing help, planning, say, a session, or planning an activity, for example, or giving control to a person, you want to think about a framework that is co-designed with autistic individuals. The reason being is that, of course, we all need to coexist, but it's so important to understand what it means, what it means to actually provide an environment for them to thrive. Now, we're giving all this support. Many parents, professionals, we want them to thrive. But the thing is, it's very much focused on themselves, as though all the difficulty comes from them alone. So when you have a child, for example, who's newly diagnosed, kan, very often kita cakap, pergi jumpa ni, pergi ni, you have to ni. If you tak boleh cakap, belajar cakap. If you ni, tak pandai buat ni, kena pandai buat ni. So everything is focused on the child. And of course, in the family, in providing that access to the support. But here is about creating an environment where these autistics can thrive. So it means in other way, it's about, so they're doing their part, but what is the rest of us doing? Right? So when we talk about a neuroaffirming practice, it's about S is a structure, because having structure helps with predictability. And we know that autistic individuals, for example, they find safety in predictability. And we talk about positive approach, attitude, and expectation. So sometimes, not sometimes lah, quite often juga lah bila kita tengok, neurodivergent, kadang-kadang kita infantilize dia orang. Macam, sebab dia orang suka Barney, sebab dia suka Thomas the
Tank
train,
engine, yeah.
and then kita rasa macam diorang ni macam budak-budak kecil. So when you think around, planning, say activity ke ataupun nak buat learning support ke, again, it needs to be positive. You have a positive. You must presume competence. Very often, children kadang-kadang yang dah besar tu masih angkut dekat point, where's your nose? Dia dah tahu dah nose kat mana. Because kadang-kadang dia tak jawab, maka kita rasa dia tak faham where is nose. Dia tak tahu nose tu apa, dia tak tahu nak ikut arahan. Sedangkan there are other elements in play. And sometimes
just because dia tak mencukupi berapa jumlah tertentu, automatically bermakna macam tak cukup,
macam tak tahu. Very often,
so
I think that is the kind of conclusion we have. So we've got to think about support. When you think about, for example, academic ke atau apa benda yang age appropriate. So kita cuma the cara tu kena tengok lah. Mungkin apa dia punya special interest, for example, you want to leverage that. Then you have empathy towards the communication differences, their sensory difference. Kan? Itu low arousal. I love low arousal. I think low arousal is so powerful. It's about co-regulation, right? But to ensure that the environment, because as it is, they already have to absorb a lot of information through the environment. Banyak sangat corak-corak. Most school macam mana? Terlalu decorative.
Yes.
I've seen
sakit mata sometimes.
I've seen calm room that is designed in a way that is so high arousal. Sebab kita rasa macam calm room ni kena ada banyak-banyak corak, banyak benda-benda mahal, cantik dan sebagainya.
Cantik. Kena penting. Cantik.
So people often think that bila dia nak masuk ke dalam calm room ni, dia kena ada benda ni. You can have all those things. They can be placed nicely, somewhere.
But that's not the priority lah.
Yeah, but you need the environment to be low arousal.
Tak trigger apa-apa.
Tak trigger.
Kena fikirkan lah, not big trigger. Sometimes benda yang kita anggap tak mengganggu is because of the sensory differences, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that sensory differences remind me of this therapist who told me this. She's trying to correct this particular someone who, when the child puts her hands over the ears, that person will push away the hand and said, it's not that loud, right? It's not that loud. And that's the other thing about neuroaffirming practice. Just going back quickly.
How do you know?
Exactly. It's about perspective taking.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that experience.
You don't know benda tu kuat bunyi bising dia pada tahap mana. You don't know. So how can you assume it's not?
And this is actually a speech therapist. I recently met dekat Spell, and she was also telling me some kids who do that during negaraku. Bila dekat dalam assembly. And she does that. And and some of the teachers will put the hands down. And then she asks, does that make this kid less patriotic just because he have his hand over his hands over the ears? And we've got to start understanding on that.
Okay.
And again, and that goes to my last point, which is link. Because we have so many people working with the individual, be it a child, adolescent, or an adult, that you want to be in communication with
each
everyone.
other. Yeah.
Because you might be doing everything, but at the same time, the other people are not, you're not communicating with other people. And so this inconsistency is not what's going to help this person to try, because it's going to cause a lot more confusion.
So same page lah, at least that's a good point.
So in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So Spell ni bukan therapy.
It is a framework.
Okay.
So you use that framework to provide context to other approaches. So we use this traffic light system. So kalau merah is a violation, kalau dia hijau, that's a good understanding. Yellow kalau misapplication ataupun partial understanding. Sebab kadang-kadang contohnya lah, kita ramai orang pakai visual schedule sebab kita nak something concrete and we want to play to strength. Banyak daripada orang ni suka benda-benda yang bergambar, senang faham. Kalau kita cakap, banyak benda kan nak kena proses. Tapi bila ada gambar, contohnya visual schedule, nak tunjuk jadual, apa yang berlaku dan sebagainya, dia cepat nak tangkap. Right? Tetapi that can also be misunderstood in the way that it doesn't respect autonomy and control, for example. You decide. You dah awal-awal dah decide what this person is going to do, for example. Yeah. So we've got to so this framework helps practitioners or even parents to figure out how to create that environment. And when I say environment, we are also part of the environment so that that person who's already struggling in this world that is not created with them in mind can actually flourish, thrive, and have sense of belonging. And I like one particular autistic adult who told me this. Now that I know spell, I know how I can use this and advocate for myself at my workplace. I need structure, I need this, and I need that. You know? So, yeah.
So another thing yang sangat menarik tentang spell, I think the final L links kan, dan banyak kali kadang-kadang kita sebagai parents pun lupa that we need to include our child.
Betul.
And so the link part, when we are linking all the different individuals that work with our children, don't forget the person
individual
themselves.
is the most important.
The
most important.
Yeah.
He has a say.
Yeah.
You know, he or she has a say, even though that person is non-speaking.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
he must be involved. You know, and sometimes you may be doing a conference, say on an autistic adult who is non-speaking, but you're not including that person because you think, what can he contribute to this conversation? Right? And it's so important, and that's an violation, because you need to have that person in the center of everything, and so you've got to think about how do I
macam mana nak include
macam
lah.
mana nak include.
Macam mana,
So it makes you think, it makes you pause, and it makes you think about how do I include this person and provide that environment lah.
Okay. So I think kita dah banyak berbincang hari ni. Memang topik yang sangat-sangat penting dan menarik. I think more penting than anything to me. I feel it's a very important conversation that we had today, and I think I would like us to conclude by having your views, Dr. Zah, on what is your hope for the neurodivergent community in Malaysia?
For them,
yeah. The hope for them.
I would, in fact, I was just telling a group of neurodivergent friends, and I was saying that if I want to suggest an organization or an association that people can refer to, or in fact any of the neurodivergents want to be part of, what can I suggest? Right? Who can I suggest? Right? So I understand that everyone may be at different stages of their life. Everyone is also at a different stage of advocacy, perhaps. But it would be so great if those who have the means to communicate and speak, and advocate for all autistics. And which means that it is so important that, we do not differentiate between what one might think high functioning and low functioning. Because it is a very diverse spectrum, and they are all autistic, regardless of their ability and their challenges. And I find that what's strong probably in some of the Western countries is that they have a very strong network and organization.
There's a platform.
As a platform.
So what was the answer? Ada jawapan tak masa Dr. Zah tanya kawan-kawan?
So it's hard because I think everyone is also doing. They're all doing advocacy, yeah, in their own way. Some are doing it on their social media. Some are giving talks. In fact, recently I listened to Dr. Chai and Dr. Bunyu, so they were talking about their life experience. I would like to recommend Gembor. Gembor, which is led by Natra. I think that she had started this, sort of a group where a lot of neurodivergents have gathered together, but also a lot of other parents have reached out to them for information. So I think it's important that we have this organization, because when we talk about prioritizing lived experiences, we want to talk about listening to neurodivergents. People need to know who they are, right? So that we can start listening to them.
So you hope that in Malaysia there will be a way for them to be more easily referred,
right?
And then
support.
That's
for
like the
support for
that's
them.
the specific one. I mean, in it, which is part of the journey to finally them just being included and just
I suppose when we think about the neurodivergent community, again, people with the means to advocate, right? People with the means, because for many of the neurodivergents, they have no means to communicate for themselves, right? And again,
So kalau ada pun lah nanti satu hari, kalau ada platform persatuan, saluran apa, untuk semua lah.
semua,
untuk
it
semua.
needs to include everyone.
That's a very beautiful hope.
That's
Right.
and I think very realistic. Why
Realistic, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because many of the neurodivergents have in fact told me that they need to find, that sense of belonging. Where does that sense of belonging needs to come from first?
Yeah.
No, you can't get that from the society at the current moment. So you need to get it from the community.
Yeah.
And
The community must include everyone.
Yeah, they've got to include themselves also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's multi levels of steps. But okay, no, I think that's a really, really good one. I think it's very practical. I think there is hope and doable for that. You didn't come and say, my hope for the neurodivergent community in Malaysia that they are completely love them, embrace and include. Like that's obvious, I think,
Yes, of
So
course.
I appreciate, thank you so much for that. Something that's quite concrete and that you had started a conversation about with some friends. So,
Right. Yeah.
so kalau jadi, selain daripada gembur ataupun gembur dah menjadi satu yang memang antara yang definitely lah boleh jadi tempat rujukan and tempat untuk semua bersama and things like that. Please update us juga
Yes, please. Yes, always.
Okay, alright.
Okay, so banyak kita telah bincang hari ni. Very, like I said, topik yang penting, neuroaffirming. We had so many words today, and the one that sticks out most to me is respect. I think respect is and connection, right? Respect and connection, very important towards true acceptance and the action of it and actually doing, right? So on behalf of Kita family, all of us, Nori, Kakak SK, Didi, Anit and myself, thank you so much, Dr. Zahilah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Spending your time with us today and sharing with us all of your valuable insights. Nori, any final words before we end today?
I also just want to say thank you so much.
Welcome.
And then, inshallah, if this was something that worked out, we would love to have you again.
For sure. No, I already know I want to have you again. So.
No, we want. See how she feels about it. So I letak lah invitation ni slowly lah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Alright.
Right. So
We're done
with
for
that,
today.
yes, terima kasih. Please share, follow, subscribe. We are on YouTube and Spotify for the full episodes. Jangan lupa media sosial kami, Instagram, TikTok dan Facebook. Sekiranya ada apa-apa soalan, even if the soalan is for Dr. Zahilah, please drop it in the comments or in our chats. And if you have any
InsyaAllah kita boleh
suggestions,
lanjutkan.
yes, suggestions for topics as well, we welcome them. And so thank you so much for listening or watching. We'll see you again next time. Terima kasih. Bye.
Bye.